Hello everyone, my name is Dapo Ibrahim for Ignite Africa TV, and today we are at the Africa Investor CEO and Investor Summit 2018.
My name's Hubert Danso. I'm the CEO and Chairman of Africa Investor Group. We're an institutional investment platform that brings together African pools of capital for infrastructure investments across Africa.
Thank you for that. So today's event, the Africa CEO and Investor Summit 2018, I believe you've been doing this before now. And compared to the previous ones, what are the things that you've been noticing, and what do you think will be different from what has been occurring in the previous summit and awards?
Okay. Well, each year, I mean, it's great that we host this event. It's an appropriate time during the UN General Assembly, but it's not really a conference. What we are, we're very transactional. So we look at very specific opportunities, very specific challenges, and then we bring the key stakeholders to try and solve some of those issues. So, for example, last year we looked very specifically at the issue of how to increase our pension funds allocations to up to 5% in the next 5 years to African infrastructure. And one of the key issues that was raised, how can we a de-risking instrument or a platform that really brings together all the existing guarantee facilities, and that was the outcome. So coming here this year, that's what we've done. So we spend a year solving some of these issues, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, but this year we've been able to get to the point where we've got all the key institutional partners: African Development Bank, Development Bank of Southern Africa, Trade Development Bank, UNECA, European Union, and the list goes on. So that, and on top of that, we have now got our partners, which are African pension funds and sovereign funds, to really get involved in making this guarantee facility for African infrastructure. It, by the way, the first of its kind that pools all of the different existing facilities that aren't necessarily being used optimally into one place. And then we know that as we bring our capital, if there's some credit enhancement that's required, we know exactly how to tap the facility because we're helping to design it.
Oh, cool. Amazing. So what's the key focus of this event now? And what are the people that you have right now? Because I can see that they've had the first session and other sessions going on right now. So what's the key focus, and what are the people that you have at the event right now?
Well, the key focus is really, in infrastructure, it's all about bringing on board the right type of debt financiers, the right type of government support. Then you've also got to have African institutions like our own that are providing the seed equity investment role. And then on top of that, you can use that as a base, as a well-structured project that's developed to high ESG-related principles to then go to our international partners with very deep pools of capital. I'm talking about 30, 60 trillion type levels of pools of capital to come in and participate in that project. And I'm very fortunate enough to be the chairman of the Global Asset Owners Advisory Board for the CFA here in New York. So, it's incumbent upon me to be able to show them opportunities for high growth. And of course, it works for the continent because we want to be able to unlock not only the returns, but also unlock the developmental dividend of well-functioning, well-structured, well-maintained infrastructure on the continent.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate your time. I'm here with
Jill Malandrino. I'm Global Markets Reporter with NASDAQ.
Thanks for coming on Ignite Africa.
Thank you for having me. I actually covered the African markets for Africa 54 and Channels TV with the Voice of America, so it's been a real pleasure covering the African markets. I think there's a ton of potential on the continent. That's why I'm excited to meet with Hubert and the rest of the members here at African Investor, because I think that the investments in infrastructure, whether it be bridges, tunnels, roads, mobile banking, technology, agribusiness, I think the opportunity globally is really within the continent, and that's really where I think institutional investors should be focusing a lot of their time.
All right. Is this the first time you've been working with Africa investors specifically?
This will be the third time that I've met with Huber and a number of the other panelists that we will be sitting with. So, for example, what we're going to talk about today at the NASDAQ market site, we're going to do a mini panel. It'll be myself, Huber, and three other investors with Africa Investor, and we're going to be talking about the infrastructure investment opportunities, over $120 billion worth of investment opportunity on the continent, and how to attract institutional investors globally and also mitigate risk at the same time. And I think those are the two most important factors when you're looking for institutional investment: risk mitigation and, of course, 100% transparency.
Thank you so much for coming on Ignite Africa.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Tell us your name, please, and tell us what you do.
Yeah, I'm Charles Burbridge, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund.
So what do you do over there as a director? What's your daily activities like, and how do you run your day-to-day stuff?
Okay, when you're a director of the Teachers Pension Fund, there's really two aspects of running the fund. One is the investment side. We invest $10 billion on the behalf of our membership. On the other side, we have to manage the benefits and make the payments to the retirees and collect, make sure that they're getting their proper benefit. So it's really paying the benefits and also investing their assets. So on a daily basis, I supervise a staff of 130 people that take care of our members. We have 60-some thousand members. We run a call center that's available during business hours, where we answer questions that the members may have. We handle media inquiries and also try to make sure that our employers are funding the pension fund properly. So the daily activity is pretty exciting and complex.
It sounds exciting and complex. That's the right word. So Africa Investors Summit, CEO and Investors Summit. Is this your first time coming to the event? And if this is not your first time, what was your previous experience, and what has your experience been so far comparatively?
Okay, well, my interest in Africa as an investment opportunity really started in 2015 when I attended this same summit. In 2015, also there's an organization called the National Association of Security Professionals that has been running Africa investment summits for the last 3 years. I've been a member of those summits as well. And then there was an economic forum in Durban, South Africa that I was able to attend. So we've been educating ourselves through these summits, really trying to prepare our trustees and gain knowledge of the investment opportunities so that ultimately we can make an investment in Africa. We do that through requests for proposals. We currently have one that we're evaluating for private equity opportunities in Africa, and so hopefully within the next quarter or two we'll actually make our first direct investment in African private equity.
Awesome. So at the beginning of the interview, at the beginning of the interview, you said you have worked with youths and young people. So how would you love to contribute towards the development of African youth, especially when it comes to emerging as an entrepreneur? What would that thing that you would love to do, or what would that thing that you would love to see maybe the government do in order to make African youth become much more productive and become more self-aware and contribute more to the growth and the development of Africa in the long run?
I've been in K-12 education in the United States for 17 years, and so developing opportunities for children to gain knowledge and experience has been very important. But probably most of all, what I've seen that's critical for the youth, whether they're in America or Africa, is they got to have hope. That the hope is that if you follow a certain path, you gain certain knowledge, that you'll have opportunities to not only satisfy your own needs, but also the needs of your community. And so really by even through our investment activities, it's another step in providing that platform for youth to aspire to. and to give them hope. Why do you get up in the morning? Well, it's because you want a better life for yourself, for your siblings, for your community. You want all the good things. You want not sit in traffic jams. You don't want to breathe polluted air. You don't want to live in a house without electricity or running water. So by our investment activities, I think we really provide that hope for children, that it's worthwhile sitting in the classroom, gaining knowledge. It's worth your efforts to invest in yourself so that you're able to seize the opportunities when they present themselves.
Mr. Chuck, thank you so much for coming on Ignite Africa TV.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Benga Gunjimi. I'm an impact investor, and I'm also an author.
So today, what are your expectations for the event for today?
African Investors is a great platform to connect with institutional investors and just anyone really thinking seriously about Africa as an emerging market. So my expectation here is to connect with more investors and potentially connect with investment opportunities.
And I believe this is not your first time coming to this event. So based on your last time at the event, what are the new expectations that you're having towards this new one in year 2018?
Well, really just to, one of the things I like is how they really globalize opportunities for investments in Africa, not just so much whether it's Africans or the US. There are a lot of investments, fund managers, pension funds, both in European markets as well as American markets. So it's a very global opportunity. So pretty much my expectation is to expand the network of investors' opportunity and also partners for the specific development projects, investment projects I do on the African continent.
Awesome. So at the beginning of this interview, you said you're an author.
Yes.
And tell us the title of the book.
Well, my new book is called Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story and Defining Your Identity.
Powerful. So just tell us the main inspiration behind your title, giving your book that title, Borderless Voice, The Power of Telling Your Story.
Well, really is this idea that everyone has a story to tell. And empowerment starts when you take on the responsibility of telling your own story by yourself, and rather than letting someone else tell your story for you. So right now in African Investors, there's a lot of conversation around changing the African narrative. So whether it's an individual or a nation, organization, or a continent, you just have to tell your story by yourself. And once you do that, you change perception and then you create new opportunities. That is what the book is all about.
So telling your story in order to create perceptions and opportunities. So tell us what you went through while you were putting the story together. What was the thinking that was going through your mind, and why did you think, okay, it's time for me to put this out there, it's time for me to let people, to create the platform for people to start telling their story to change the world? What was going through your mind during that process? Because I know writing is not something you just wake up and do. It requires a lot of focus, it requires a lot of consistency, and it requires a lot of thinking. So what were those thinking that was going through your mind that sparked up, the writing process?
Well, prior to that, I was working in capacity of a life coach, and I was coaching people to tell their story, to really change their narrative and give themselves permission. So I worked with quite a number of people, and opportunities presented themselves, like capturing their stories. I was distributing these stories on several platforms, and I thought there might be an opportunity here to amplify the stories that come from my coaching conversations. So obviously with their permission, I decided to start putting these stories together and finding a common thread and extrapolating the insights from those stories that anyone else can apply to themselves. Personally, in terms of my own career trajectory, I just asked myself the question, who I might be becoming. So rather from going from a social entrepreneur to an international entrepreneur to an impact investor to a life coach, I thought it was time I became an author and really captured the stories and put it out there to inspire more people to find their own voice.
That's a powerful question. Who am I becoming? And I believe everyone should always ask themselves these questions. Who am I becoming, in order to find out your purpose in life? So if we want a copy of the book, how do we get a copy of the book? How do the audience get a copy of the book?
The book is available on my website, benga.org. It's also on Amazon. It's on local bookstores, large in the United States. If you're outside of the United States, Amazon is definitely a location. Or my website, benga.org, is the location to get the book.
Okay. So what's the powerful thing that you want your audience to hold on to after reading the book? I believe it's going to be a wide variety of things to hold on to, but there's always something that you want them to connect with. What would that be?
Well, that would be this idea that their stories, their greatest asset. Your story is uniquely yours. No one has your story. Think about it like your fingerprints. You are the only one with your story, and oftentimes a lot of people discount how powerful their story is, or some people even say my story is not audience worthy, or no one is interested in a story like me. So I want people to shift that mindset and really start thinking internally and seeing that their story is the greatest asset that they have. And once they assume the responsibility of honing that and telling their story, they shift first their own perception, and secondly, the perception of the people around them. And that becomes their identity, their brand identity. And that makes them really unstoppable, and they can do whatever they want.
Good. So do you have a favorite quote that you would like to share with us? To inspire everyone, what's your favorite quote?
I would say your story is not your past till date. It is your proximity to your dreams. And once you tell your story, you activate a tribe, and it is in that tribe where all the magic and miracle happens.
You will have to say that again, because I want people to digest it.
Yes.
All right, say that quote again, please.
Your story is not your past till date. It is your proximity to your dreams. Once you tell your story, you activate a tribe. And in that tribe, in that community, that is where all the miracle happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, Benga Gujimi, the author of the best-selling book, Borderless Voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm Youssef Ruisi. I'm Deputy General Manager in charge of corporate investment banking in Attijari Wafa Bank Group.
And right now you just got the award for the CEO, African CEO of the Year. How do you feel right now?
Well, it's absolutely great, and we are really delighted to be here, and it's a recognition of the work that has been done by all our teams for many years now in favor of Africa, and growing our presence from Morocco originally to more than 16 countries in Africa today, and being very much involved in the socio-economic development of the country through retail banking, corporate banking, investment banking, and putting all together the synergy between our countries of presence and bringing the international investors community to those markets, but in the same time being very much involved locally in the socio-economic impact in terms of providing housing, consumer credit to African people.
Do you have any message for African CEOs out there, especially the upcoming ones that are just starting up maybe their businesses or stuff? Do you have any message for them out there to like encourage them or to keep them going and stuff like that?
Well, absolutely. We share our experience as African investors. We started our journey in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, especially since 2005. We acquired 14 banks, more than 16 countries in Africa, and the outcome is very positive for us as an investors in terms of return, in terms of stability, and in terms of really involvement in the long term in every country. So I would say that really, if you have the view, if you have the horizon of investment, there are huge opportunities to get in Africa, but being very much involved on the ground to seize this opportunity in a proper way. So the message is trust, is confidence, is a positive outcome, huge perspectives for infrastructure, investment, but also in terms of helping and providing the ways to enhance people locally on a socio-economic perspective in terms of providing loans, providing financial solutions, and the perspectives are really positive for us as investors, and so this may be a good experience to share with potential investors and other CEOs across the board.
My name is Ibrahim Sanya. I'm the Global Head of Advisory and Capital Market for Africa Exim Bank. We're a DFI out of Cairo, and we are a multilateral financial institution focused on trade enablement across the continent.
So you just got the award for the best listing in Africa, best listing company in Africa. How does that make you feel right now?
Well, this has been a great privilege and a great moment for the bank, and we were most honored and humbled to receive this award, which was within a quite competitive list of candidates and nominees. At the same time, this pride we have is really a testimony of the vision our leadership, starting with our president, has had for this listing, because we are probably in the entire world the only development finance institution that has listed its DR. There's been only a previous case of one institution from Latin America that did it. So in terms of Africa realization, it's the first in Africa, because not only as a DFI, in the DFI space, there's no other DFI that's doing it from the continent. We're the only one that has done it. And furthermore, our President Orama has insisted all along that we make sure in our mandate to develop the continent and develop the capital market, this listing takes place in Africa. So the senior management has really, in this effort, demonstrated the importance of keeping the continent as prime focus, and also the advisors we use are all majority from the African continent. So, which further demonstrate that the continent has the resources, has the means to achieve the best. So today, obviously, the proof in the pudding, where we were competing with a variety of African companies, some listed on the continent, some not, some using foreign advisors, some not. Our choices have reaped the benefit that we were expecting.
Great. So now that you've had the best listing company, what's the next step? What's the driving force again, and what's the next thing that you intend to achieve again as a company? What's the next thing that you want your team to look forward to?
Thank you. The bank just celebrated its 25th anniversary, and the journey has been quite extraordinary. We have crossed the $11 billion balance sheet side last year. In terms of country membership, today, from our early days when there was only 20 or so member countries, we have 50 participating member countries out of 54. And basically, we have only 4 more countries to add in our base.
Okay.
Furthermore, our growth has been robust under the leadership of our president, who took helm in 2015, where our balance sheet was $6 billion at the time, and today we are over $11 billion. Our target for 2021 basically double that amount, and there is a lot of work we have ahead of us. So this milestone is one we celebrate with all the required humility, but it means that we must not rest on our laurels, because the continent is today undergoing a transition point where the importance of having transformation, industrialization, must be at the center of its next chapter. And our strategy established for the next few years in 2015 has 4 pillars, and 2 of them are around, one is industrialization, a second is intra-Africa trade. So every day we wake up, our bank is focused on making sure that these 4 pillars, 2 of them I've just listed, get realized. So one of the numbers we always try to improve on a daily basis is the intra-Africa trade, which is a number that is within Africa, which is a number under 15%, when most of the continents have a 50% typical average. So the path ahead is massive. But if you can understand that that is the most significant point and challenge we have for our evolution, then you can understand how much work is left. Because being a legacy of colonization, most of our trade, most of our infrastructure, most of our habits reside with a direction offshore with our former colonizing party. So you need to think about it as when they left just system to allow you to do what you used to do, which is take the natural resource they came to get from your home back to their home. The banking sectors in most of those countries follow also the ownership of older colonization structure. The ports, the logistic still belongs to the former colonizing party. The roads to your neighbor is not constructed, but the port to take the ship to the former colonizer is in place. So the old habits after 50 years have not changed. They are still designed around trading with the old colonial master. So the habits that exist today, as my president liked to say, are not by accident. So to change it also must not be by accident. It must be by design. And that's why every day we wake up, we are focused on that mission. And we understand that our focus needs to reside around changing the current reality, not in terms of just the narrative, because I think the story of the African potential is now quite well heard across the globe, but we need to evolve from a potential story to an actual reality. And that's where I think most of the energies of the bank and colleagues are around. So we've completed this listing in Mauritius. We're working towards dual listing. We also are, as a bank, have seen our strategy and action go from a credit-only bank move to one of a risk-bearing provision. Those are guarantees, and now fee income, like this activity, where as a bank we want to be a catalyst of development by actually front-loading the risk-taking, whether you do it by a guarantee or organizing transaction, where because we reside in Africa, because we own majority by African countries, show the direction and basically point to more dollars towards the continent. And that's really where our mind is today. We have the luxury of benefiting from a variety of shareholders. We're structured with 4 classes of shareholders. Class A are countries, African countries. Those 50 I've listed. Class B are African companies. And you have groups like Dangote and Africa Development Bank, TDB, who are shareholders. But then you also have investment managers prestigious one from South Africa called PIC as a shareholder within this Class B. Class C, you have basically in the industry of Exim Bank, which is what we do, export-import bank. The leading countries in the emerging market are shareholders via their Exim Bank. So when you take the word BRIC, except for Brazil, you have China, you have Russia, you have India. Those Exims are all shareholders in the bank. And beside them at the international level, you have Citibank, Standard Chartered, HSBC, and a long list. So within that diversity of shareholders, we're able to achieve a lot. But a year ago, roughly almost to this quarter, we listed the bank in Mauritius to allow the public to hold shares via a DR program. So we really think that that variety allows us to be a unique vehicle to provide the required change on the continent.
Thank you for that amazing response. So my next question now will be for African youth or emerging African CEOs. What would be that one key advice that you would like to give them, that you think would really help them to be able to also get to this kind of position where they become a best listing or where they have the best management, best CEOs as well? So what advice would you give young emerging African CEOs when it comes to building up their company or their investment as well?
That's a very good question. I think in the professional life, it is important to remember that most people will rely on you, or actually will count on you, for either your technical expertise, your reliability, or your loyalty. One of the most valuable one ends up your technical ability. So that is something that is important for young people to build in, because that is a differentiating factor from experience, training, that is not easily replicable, although it can become a commodity. The fact of being reliable and loyal, those are inbuilt in human beings. But also those people can be replaced. But when you evolve and manage to stay in an institution long enough, and you become a manager and a leader, a senior leader, then a CEO, the most important trait that is important for the continuity of your surrounding, of your environment, is actually inspiring energy to your colleagues to go through the next day. Because basically, that's what makes a difference between one leader and another, because the tomorrow, the path ahead, is unclear. The challenge you face are very clear in your mind. Someone that can get you to remove that temporary challenge, bring the energy you need to look beyond it and keep pushing, is a critical trait for young CEOs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So just like you mentioned, you will be needed for your technical ability, your reliability, and your loyalty. And they need to build in those three aspects. That's very powerful and very insightful. I can thank you much for these words of wisdom, and hopefully young CEOs and young African entrepreneurs out there will hold on to these words and also use it to get themselves to a point where they will be able to say, okay, now we have reached a milestone as well. Thank you very much again. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
My name is Mamadou Mbaye. I am Executive Vice President of FONSIS, which is the Strategic Investment Fund of Senegal. Senegal is a West African country, as you know about. So I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to address your audience which is for some of it based in Africa. So African youth, and we here in New York, we participated into an African Investor Forum. FONSIS received an award this year. It's a Sovereign Investment Fund Initiative of the Year. And it is showcasing the good work we're doing in Senegal in the frame of investing for developing the economy. So we're very pleased to actually have received this award and very pleased to address your audience.
Okay, tell us the award again, please.
It's Africa Sovereign Investment Initiative of the Year.
And obviously you just told us what it means to you. So what's the next milestone? Because this is a big milestone to have this award. So what's the next milestone for your team, and what should the Africans, most especially African youth, what's next should they be looking forward to, especially from your company, with regards to you reaching this milestone and then accomplishing the next milestone again?
So let's start with the meaning of that award. The strategic investment initiative in Senegal is really a project which goes along the line replicating what has been done in countries like Singapore or the United Emirates Arabs, where strategic investment funds have played a very significant role in actually developing or being a good partner to private sector in developing the local economy. We receive assets from the states, and we leverage that asset to attract private investment into the economy. The idea of actually basically leveraging public money or public asset is something which has not been done very frequently in Africa. Most of the governments have actually sizable pools of assets which are sometimes not managed, which doesn't really produce revenues, which are not leveraged. So the idea is, if you actually pull that into a strategic investment fund, which is managed by investment professionals, which is leveraged and showcased into the capital markets and to international investors, you can actually have a better case for attracting international investment, and also a better case for developing the private sector. And that's one of the goals of this initiative.
So, what advice do you have for young CEOs, young emerging CEOs, especially African young emerging CEOs? What advice do you have for them? And what's the main challenge that you think is kind of generic that they most likely will encounter, and what's the word of encouragement for them to overcome?
When I started working in the markets, a long time ago, it was in the 90s, I started actually working in commodities markets. Then I did energy arbitrage, and I went into private equity. At the time I started working, it wasn't really easy to start a career in finance in Africa. Now, across sectors, actually, young people can start their professional life in Africa because the continent is opening up. We're here in New York to showcase the fact that it's not a thing to come. Africa is part of the asset allocation of some of those big institutional investors which are actually sitting here. And this is something that's going to grow and being developed. The forum we had today was a way of thinking around how best to attract some of us institutional investors into infrastructure. And we have other fields. You have agriculture. You have the financial services. We try to develop the mortgage markets inside countries. So all that to say that basically Africa is now within the agenda. And the only advice I would give to an entrepreneur or young CEO who's actually now trying to develop his business is don't travel, don't get yourself abroad. You can go to have expertise, but Africa is the place to be now to develop your business. And going forward, 10 years from now, you will realize that you have made the right choice.
Thank you so much for that word of wisdom.
I thank you. And maybe to add just a few words about African development. We are now at a turning point, really, for Africa. Yes, the continent has a lot of resources, and we know that natural resources that has to be leveraged. We need to develop industrial platform to transform that and not export raw materials. That's for sure. Yes, the continent is huge continent. It's a vast territory. You could actually incorporate the USA, China, part of Europe, India inside the continent and still have some room. So it's a huge continent with a little bit more than 1 billion people. So it's really an empty continent. There are few people into a vast territory. We have a lot of rooms, a lot of land, we have a few people, and really the next challenge is to give to the young people in Africa the opportunity to good education. We have to give them opportunities into their own countries and really open up the playing field. But today the world is internationalized, and really we can do from Africa whatever people are doing from Hong Kong, whatever they are doing from San Francisco, whatever they're doing from Paris or elsewhere. And really we have to jump into the innovation bandwagon. We have to invest into research, and development. We have to invest into innovation. FinTech is an African reality. It is something we're living and practicing every day into our continent. It's not the case in the US. It's not the case in Europe. So we are at the forefront of some of those innovation, and we really need to look at the continent now with a new eye. It's new marketing, nothing negative. Really. Africa is in the map, and positively we have to work as African on the best way to showcase and to work around the public image of a continent, so that people see the good thing and the reason why they should come invest and work alongside us, rather than the negative sound bits.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and everything. Congratulations again on your award. Thank you very much. We're back again with the CEO of Africa Investors, and I have to say, I must say to you guys that it's been a tremendous event. It's been very wonderful. It's been successful, and there's been a lot going on. And I would like you all to hear from the CEO himself. What do you think about the event, especially for 2018? What do you think about the event by yourself, from your own personal observations?
Well, I think the event has been a great success, not just because that's the obvious thing that I should say, but I think we've broken a record. I mean, we've now, over the last 2 days, as part of this event, brought together asset owners that command over $10 trillion worth of assets, and they are now focused on Africa. And we've now moved the conversation from should I invest in Africa or am I looking at it from a notebook perspective to, if you bring me the investable deals, there's a serious prospect that we can deploy capital, subject to them being structured in the right way. So this whole 5% agenda that we've been working on in partnership with the African Union and the new Partnership for Africa's Development, where we are committing as African institutional investors to employ best endeavors to invest up to 5% of our assets within the next 5 years to infrastructure in Africa. If the governments can work with us on a new framework that takes account of our investment criteria, it's a game changer. So we can talk about the challenge of $138 billion infrastructure deficit, but there's a solution when you can start beginning to access the multi-trillion-dollar pools of capital that are global and the institutional capital that sits within Africa as a seed and anchor investor.
Thank you for that response. Right now, I also represent, or our media represent, the African youths.
Yeah.
And my question now would be, how do you intend to involve African youth, especially the young, emerging young African CEOs?
Yes.
What can be done? What can be put in place to involve this set of new CEOs for them to be able to upskill their businesses as well, and get to the point where they could also come here and get like the top CEO award, top investors award, and stuff like that to to inspire them? What are the things that could be done to inspire them as well?
Fantastic. Look, we are all on the same level. We are all young Africans, and we really want the best for our continent. See the challenges as opportunities, and then try and see how you can use your expertise, use your platforms, use your network to make a small contribution to that particular space. Because once you do that, you'll be amazed at your ability to be able to grow something of scale from something that's small, rather than trying to frustrate oneself trying to take on a big project for all the right reasons, and you don't have the capacity to get it over the line, and you can waste a lot of time and a lot of energy, and a lot of enthusiasm can be lost. So I believe that the youth are right at the forefront of this. I mean, we have a saying in our company that, you know, we've got to be looking to the future and we've got to innovate. And the only way and the starting point for that is you've got to have the internal capacity to look at the present as if it was the past, and that the youth are the future. You are the leaders going forward. So we really want you to get involved in the transactions, see all of the challenges as an opportunity, because they can be fixed. Capital is not saying I'm not going to come because there's a challenge. Capital is saying structure in a certain way so I can price the risk, and then let me look at that and take a view. And we are not structuring the projects, we are not lobbying our governments, we are not entering into partnerships with our governments, where we are saying we will meet your project where we find it. And I think that's one of the big breakthroughs that we've seen in our infrastructure platform, which is basically you can't wait for the project to be perfect before you think about engaging with the team to be able to deploy capital. Take the imperfections, make it perfect. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Good projects are being financed all the time. We've got development to unlock, and we're very serious about that. We should be having best world-class healthcare services, access to clean water, access to regular electricity, and it's on us. It's on us. So that's really the message that I'm sending to the youth. Don't look around anywhere else for the solution. You are the solution. We are the solution.
Thank you so much. Amazing response. Thank you very much.
Okay, great.
All right.
Keep up the good work.